Are you ready for 6 minutes and 40 seconds of something that's noble, that is awesome and shiny? Here it comes. So when I was in high school, or when I was growing up, my world were my friends. I had Greg and Shane. When I graduated, and that was for my graduation party, that world faded away. I went to the George Washington University, and yeah, GW. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I decided I was going to major in political science. I was going to be the best politician this country's ever seen. I was going to be George. That is me. I went pro after college. Here's my trading card. And I think that that was something that helped me with what I'm doing today. It required me to be creative. It required me to engage the audience. But one of the things I loved about this was that rule number one for mascots, you don't talk. You see, I wasn't a great public speaker, which is bad for a politician, but I took a class on public speaking. Anyone want to guess what I got in that class?
C. An A.
I did. I got a C. Actually, it was a C+. But that was a problem, because if I was going to be a politician, or if I was going to do what I'm doing today, I needed to be more effective in my craft. Last year, Kelly Palmer came here, and she said, learning has the potential to change lives and transform the world. And I agree with that, with an asterisk. Only if we're at the top of our game. How do we get to the top of our game? Well, we apply what we learned at things like this. We've come here today. We've come to this conference, the future of learning, developing agility in a rapidly changing world. The question is, what do we do after today? How are we going to hone our craft? How are we going to be able to change the world with what we do? This morning, we had a keynote speaker, Catherine, and she came up and she told us about noble and awesome and shiny. She also helped us to center ourselves, gave us strategies that we can actually use in stressful times. This afternoon, Paul's going to come up here. He's going to talk a little bit about neuroscience and how that will impact our craft. It won't be phony neuroscience, and I'm going to talk about phony neuroscience in just a second. He's going to come up here and give us some specific things we can do. This morning, we had a bunch of presentations, and you can see the topics that are up there. One of those was Pecha Kucha. If you haven't tried it, I dare you to try it. It will stretch you. But a lot of the topics revolve around this idea of change and how fast change happens, and what we can do about that. This afternoon, we had a series of other presentations, and those topics are up here. But really the core theme this afternoon was about thinking differently. How do we take our craft and improve it by thinking differently? It could be with who we're working, could be how we design it, gamification, could be how we're measuring things. A lot of these topics are close to my heart. Now, my first conference that I ever went to for learning was ATD Technology in 2008. And David Pogue, a writer for the New York Times about technology, came up and gave a keynote, and he told us to take out our flip phones because that's what we had in 2008. And he showed us how to send a text message to GOOGL, and we could enter pizza, and we'd get a response that gave us the closest pizza shop, and now look what everyone has in their pockets. Things are changing rapidly. How do we adjust to that? People have computers in their pockets. What else has changed since 2008, since I went to that conference? It wasn't that long ago. 9 years? Well, in 2008, there's an organization that called 23andMe, mass market DNA testing. Now we can take a look at our genome. 2009, the first smart thermostat, the Internet of Things. 2010, my son was created. Also 2010, the iPad. We no longer have desktops. We have laptops, we have tablets. In 2013, we had other things. Tinder. The app of the year, where you don't have to take a look too deeply, you just swipe left and right. Wearables, Google Glass, augmented reality. We can suddenly see things that weren't there in front of us. Wearables, Fitbit. We can count our steps. All sorts of data. We can track our sleep. What does this mean for us as learning professionals? How is this going to impact our work? It's a good question. We can do a lot with technology. We can do things like I've done. We can use Poll Everywhere. We can use Kahoot, which is a quiz-like application. We can have people research. The problem is, they can also research us. How many people have seen this? This is junk science because the National Training Laboratories never did a study like this. It deserves a big Ghostbuster circle with a line through it. That's the problem. There's too much information, and some of it's not good. Will Thalheimer took it upon himself to create this thing called the Debunker Club. and it's an internet site that helps learning professionals figure out fact from fiction, learning styles, things like that. So what's our burden? How are we going to do something with this changing world? How are we going to put this in our knapsack? This is where I want you to take your phones out again, because I'm going to ask you a question. Kelly Palmer said, learning can change the world, it can transform lives. Well, here's the question for you. If you could make a change through, pull everywhere isn't there. I'm going to ask you to shout out an answer. If you could make a change through a presentation, what would it be? What's something you would change?
Make it interesting.
Make it interesting. What else?
Engaging.
Engage people. What else would you do?
Shorter.
You'd make presentations shorter.
Make it dynamic.
We could make them dynamic. What else?
No PowerPoint.
No PowerPoint. Well, here we are. We're at the ATD Puget Sound chapter, and we as a group can create things. We can present at other chapter meetings. We as a group can put together presentations and proposals that are presented at the biggest conferences in the world. This morning, I asked people to come up with a 6-word memoir. And this is the word cloud that came out of that. What's at its center? Learning. What's around it? How it's done. Those are the biggest words that came out from your memoirs. It's about people. It's about training. It's about developing. It's about change. But how about us as individuals? This is me at the top of Mount St. Helens. I went up there about a month ago. It was a cloudy day. I had no idea how far the top was because we had to poke through those clouds. It's kind of a metaphor for what we're doing as learning professionals. How do we do the hard things? What's going to be our Mount St. Helens moment at work? Well, as individuals, we can be like a domino. The thing is, one domino, when it topples over, it doesn't make that big of a deal. But what happens when we put them all next to each other? What happens when we find our posse, like Catherine said? We touch one and touches another. It makes art. We can change the world with what we did here this week, today. That's my passion.